In May 2017, following a life of childhood physical and mental abuse and continued throughout my adult life, I embarked on a spiritual journey in an attempt to make positive change and overcome a lifetime of depression and anxiety. My journey began with a course of Reiki and progressed to the Holistic Healing College in London, where I have been working towards achieving my spiritual life coaching certificate. This journey saw me leave my husband and an emotionally abusive relationship, reconnect with my mother, and establish my own holistic healing business. In September 2017, I went on holiday with my mom and stepdad to Croatia on a Nielsen sporting holiday. Shortly after, in November, I sailed around St. Lucia with my parents. I was growing on a personal level and delving into all things spiritual. But the two things that I could not quite grasp was the letting go aspect of the universal makeup and trusting in my own power and abilities to manifest the life I desired. Despite the clear shift in the way I felt about myself, I still struggled with self-confidence and self-esteem issues. My life was changing for the better, and my symptoms of depression and anxiety were no longer present. I was also weaning myself off medication. In May 2018, shortly after my birthday, I received a call from my mother asking me if I would be able to attend a free week in Croatia from June 3rd on a Nielsen holiday. I was delighted, and after checking with my boss, I advised my mom I could attend. I set about organizing myself for the impending trip. The reason this holiday was free was because we made friends with the tennis coach in September of 2017. As the resort had seen some renovations, the staff were allowed to invite friends and family for free, so as to test the refurbishments and provide feedback prior to the resort being fully open to the public in the following weeks. This was the first perfect and divine intervention in play. On June 5th, a mere 2 days into our trip, we were approached by the tennis coach asking us if we would like another free week in Croatia, as there were more spaces the following week that he couldn't fill. As we were already there, he could just change our flights. I was thrilled but apprehensive, as I wasn't sure if work would allow me to have more time off. My boss's response to my request simply stated, "Go for it, Joe. I will show you as working from home. Have a great time." This was the second perfect and divine intervention in play. The following Sunday, a lady named Linda arrived. I first noticed her on the tennis courts. She was wearing a full leg brace. Having injured my knee quite badly during a ski accident, I was inclined to ask why she wore her brace. It is important to mention at this point that I had taken up wakeboarding whilst on this holiday, which involved being out at sea with my feet strapped to a board being towed around the ocean at great speeds. I loved it. Linda advised that she had snapped her knee the previous year whilst wakeboarding. This was the third perfect and divine intervention in play. The universe knew that Linda had a knee brace caused by wakeboarding, and that it would keep me off the water as I already had a serious leg injury myself. On June 16, 2018, I was sat watching my stepdad play tennis in the final, and he won. I was booked in to do HIIT on the fitness deck at 11 a.m. At 10:55 a.m., I informed my mom that I would meet her for lunch, as I was off to my exercise class. I recall running down the path to the fitness deck and laying out my mat and ready for the exercise class to begin. My stepdad decided to join me. Before we started, I gave him a hug and congratulated him on his win. Moments later, the music started, and we were off doing burpees for a timed period. The sun was burning down on us, and I remember feeling energized and content with my life. I felt lucky to be having such a wonderful experience at no cost whatsoever to me or my family. Suddenly, and without any warning, I became very aware of the most excruciating pain in the back of my head. It was a pain like nothing I had ever experienced before. As I dropped to the floor in agony, the whole world seemed to slow down around me, and I could no longer make sense of the noise. I somehow knew that I was dying, and I looked at the fitness instructor who was desperately trying to help me. I said, "This is it. I am dying." I recall vomiting on the floor and lying down on my back as if accepting my fate. All of a sudden, there was no more pain. The pain was replaced with utter euphoria, and I felt absolutely amazing. I was so relaxed and so content with life that I could have stayed there forever. I then became aware of my grandfather, who passed in 2009. He was holding my head in his hands, and he said to me, "Joe, you are going to be fine. Trust me. This has to happen now. You are going to be fine." He didn't speak these words. Rather, I felt the words being passed from him to me through his hands, which cushioned my head. Also present was my great-grandma, who hovered over my body with the palm of her hand pushing towards me. Somehow she was signifying that it wasn't my time, and I was to stay. Stay child was her message. In addition, my great-granddad was also present, but I sensed that was more for my granddad than for me. I felt so at peace, so very loved, safe and protected. It is very difficult to put into words the feelings I had. It was complete and utter bliss, and there was nothing but love around me. I was floating and I could feel everything and everyone around me. Suddenly I became aware of my physical body again, but I couldn't feel any pain. I could see everything and everyone around me almost like I was watching a movie of what was happening to me. I felt ever so tired and peaceful. I opened my eyes, and the first thing I saw was my stepdad's head silhouetted by the clock on the wall that read 4:10 p.m. I suddenly thought to myself, I must have passed out from that headache because it was 10:55 a.m. the last time I looked at a clock. It was Sunday the 17th of July 2018, and over a day since my arrival in hospital. The following is what I was told by my doctor and by my parents. At the time I collapsed on the fitness deck, I was literally gone within 60 seconds. Fortunately for me, there was a paramedic right next to me on the fitness deck. The paramedic shouldn't have been there on the actual holiday, but had filled in for her friend at the last minute. Less than 2 meters away from me was a defibrillator. Walking by the fitness deck was a doctor from the United Kingdom. The ambulance station was right next to resort, and there was an ambulance on site in under 4 minutes. Between these people and the medical professionals, I was given CPR and plugged up to the defibrillator, which restarted my heart, and I was never deprived of oxygen. The doctor thought that I may have a bleed on the brain due to my symptoms, so when I arrived at the first hospital, I was taken straight down for a scan that confirmed this. I was then driven 3 hours across country, where I met my surgeon, who happened to be holidaying on one of the islands. I was flown in to perform my surgery, which he did without my mother's consent, as he couldn't get hold of her. This quick action saved my life. The surgeon fed 3 coils through the main artery of my leg, behind my heart and into my head, plugging the bleed. I was fixed, but my battle was not yet over. My mother was informed that the next 72 HRS were critical. If I had another bleed, there would be nothing they could do. It wasn't yet known the extent of my brain damage. I was in intensive care for 7 days. During this time, I can only describe being between places simultaneously. I was very aware of my granddad's presence, and I felt so very connected to everything that was. I knew without any doubt whatsoever that I was going to be perfectly okay and would be left with no side effects from this experience. This was a feeling I had at my very core. I just knew that I was going to walk out of hospital perfectly okay and continue a normal and happy life. My time in intensive care was very surreal. I was aware on occasion of my mom and stepdad's presence, but I was also more elsewhere than present. It was almost like I had the ability to separate myself from my physical body, whilst it recovered from its ordeal. There was also no element of time. It was almost like everything was happening at once. There was no delay between days, hours, or minutes. Everything was just all-encompassing. Finally, on day 8, I was released to a recovery ward, and the doctors had given me the all-clear from intensive care. I was advised that I would continue to need medication, as my headaches would be severe whilst my brain recuperate. However, I knew that I would not have any headaches, nor would I need any medication. I was healed and my brain was fully recovered. Over the next 3 days, I suddenly became very aware of myself and my creative powers. I felt absolutely amazing. I was drawing again, and I felt like I had found a new lease of life. I listened to music, and I just knew that everything was okay. I knew that all I had ever dreamed of was already mine, and that all I had to do was let go and trust. For the first time in my life, I knew exactly how to do that. I also knew that my brain hemorrhage was caused by my negative feelings and thoughts about myself. It was my body's way of freeing my soul and setting me free. It was almost like it was showing me that the only person standing in my way of happiness was me. I felt elevated and joyful. I was so full of love that I just wanted to love everyone and everything around me. I knew with absolute clarity that my life had not been wasted prior to this experience, and it was now up to me to share my story to inspire others. I need to share with the world all my negative experiences and turn them into positive ones for the good of others. On day 10, I walked out of that hospital in Croatia with not a single thing wrong with me. The headaches the doctors spoke of never arrived. I haven't had one single headache of any kind since leaving intensive care. The doctor who looked after me cried when I left. He stated that it was very rare she had a good news story in her practice, but that I was off the scale. On my return to the United Kingdom, I found my doctor to also be in awe of my recovery. as were my friends and family. I know without a shadow of a doubt that I was saved to share my story. I know with absolute clarity that I am here to serve others and bring people back to Source to connect with their true self and embrace their own power. We are amazing, and it's up to me to get this message across. In addition, the universe really does have our back, and divine intervention exists. All you have to do is look at my story. Firstly, I shouldn't have been in Croatia, but I was. I was surrounded by all the people best able to save my life. The universe made sure Linda, who wore the knee brace, would be in Croatia at the same time as me, as the universe knew this would stop me wakeboarding and therefore keep me out of the sea. It is incredible, and I'm so lucky to have had this experience. I now know that life is just a reflection of our innermost thoughts and feelings, and we create our own reality. It's now been 3 months since my brain hemorrhage, and a lot has changed for me. It hasn't all been rosy either. I find myself very sensitive to other people's energies these days, which has left me retreating from crowded areas and finding peace and comfort in quiet places and with nature. I am also less tolerant of people who live purely for the gain of material things. I feel they are missing out on so much of what life is actually about. In addition, I am also super connected to Mother Earth and find myself wanting to help heal the planet as well as the human beings upon it. In addition, I felt inclined to change the name of my holistic business, and I have made a start on my book. I know with certainty that the future for me is very bright and that everything I need is on its way to me. As I serve for the highest good of myself and others, I will be provided for along the way, and I am so excited for the next chapter of my life.